Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Security Bread podcast. So I'm Giorgio. This is a little project of mine where I invite cool people from the cybersecurity industry uh, so that we can chat a little bit about some of the most recent, security news and what happened out there. And so we can, during the discussion, learn something in the process, and hopefully you listening or watching this can learn something too. Just a reminder before we go on, this is live on YouTube right now. It will be available still on the YouTube channel afterwards, and will be re-uploaded on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and so on and so forth. If you think this is entertaining, useful, interesting, considering subscribing to the channel and maybe sharing it with a friend. That said, I'm so happy to introduce Matthew to you today with me. Hi, Matthew. How are you today?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on the show.
I'm so happy to have you. Thank you for that. I will probably thank you multiple times during the episode and even afterwards. But that said, would you like to maybe introduce yourself for my public here?
I'm a CISO. I'm a cybersecurity strategist. I advise, businesses, companies, boards and so forth on emerging threats, industry best practices. I've been in the industry coming up on 35 years now. And I do cybersecurity predictions. I do keynotes. I do lots of fun stuff. I enjoy our industry.
That's great. You do a lot of stuff actually, and that's one of the reasons why I'd like to have you on the show with me, so I can definitely exploit some of that knowledge and experience myself. So this is the idea. I'm going to share my screen with the few news we collected from the last week or so, and we're just going to have a chat about it basically. The first one, let's see if I can share my screen. Yes, I do apparently. First one, it's pretty juicy, pretty interesting. So this piece from Wired, and by the way, all of the news articles will be in the video description for you to, go watch it and read it yourself. This first one is talking about the Apple Vision Pro product from Apple, that if you don't know are their latest virtual reality, mixed reality Googles out there. A group of researchers from the United States actually found a quite interesting way to exploit the eye tracking feature of this product. Basically, and I'll try to summarize it very quickly. The thing is that you can do, let's say, video calls, right, using this kind of tools, where the product creates an avatar of you, but your eyes are actually the eye, tracked, so they are moving exactly how you actually move your eyes watching the screen inside it. And this group of researchers found out that tracking the eyes of the avatar through the video call, they were able to understand what kind of keyword, keystrokes you were typing on your virtual keyboard, and so potentially be able to discover maybe your password, maybe what you were writing in another messaging app, maybe a multi-factor authentication PIN or something. And with a pretty good fidelity, actually, I'm reading here 92% of accuracy in messages, 77% with passwords. So pretty interesting. I will stop there for a second and see what were your first thoughts when reading this, Matthew?
It's always important to have research, right? And just because something is discovered in research doesn't mean it's actually a practical attack that we need to be worried about. The technology here it's just looking, the attacker is doing an analysis on where the person is looking. And this is a very narrow case. So this is for AR and VR headsets. And when you're wearing them, you can't look down at your keyboard. So what the tool does is it puts up a virtual keyboard in front of you. And it puts it up in a relatively the same virtual space for everybody. And so when somebody's now looking at the keys to type something, Well, the system can use AI deep learning. You don't even need deep learning, but it's much more effective if you use something like deeper learning, a generative adversarial network, a GAN or something like that, to be able to track where they're going. It simply gives you a certain predictive analysis on which key are you looking at. And again, it's interesting. We've seen things like this not only with visual, the sound of a keystroke or mouse, things of that sort. Only super advanced attackers would ever want to even go down this path. Why? Because there's so many easier ways of being able to harvest sensitive data than this. And in most cases, if you're going to have the headset on, chances are you're probably not going to be typing your password. You're already in your application. You're already talking to the group you're talking to. How often when you're on a Zoom call or a call like this, do you go in and enter your password somewhere? Not very much, but there is a potential of data leakage here. And since then, Apple has basically created a default where it's not going to show that screen for certain situations. It's an easy fix to that. They could do all sorts of other things. They could move the keyboard a little bit, around in that virtual space. We see the same thing for entering PIN codes, right, in terminals, because the numbers are always in the same location. So if you can watch that, or you can, so yeah, it's interesting. It's research. I wouldn't be too worried about it.
Absolutely agree with you with basically everything there. Like sometime I think that I maybe collect some too easy news or just too easy attacks that they bring to the show. So I think maybe we should maybe talk about some of those very fancy new kind of researches. And at the same time, I agree that those are possibly theoretical, right? I hardly see this being exploited in the wild, if not from very, very, very advanced and maybe targeted attacks, right? Even though, especially because this is some kind of products that are used by consumers most of the time, not, let's say employees or I don't see yet a CEO using this to have a call with their, with their board or something. So it's hardly something that we see on a daily basis or just very frequently. And at the same time, you said it right. Research is very important because we are still predicting, let's say, and preventing exploitage of a lot of different vulnerabilities. This is just an example, right? That could be maybe tomorrow be exploited by someone else, and that's only if the company actually fixes those patches when the researchers share the thing. And that's maybe another topic, right? We spoke about this in multiple different episodes before. The thing is that not always the companies are not always that collaborative with researchers when they find about something like this, and that's a problem, right?
Oh,
Do you?
absolutely a problem, but it's gotten
Yeah.
better over the years, much, much better, especially with bug bounty programs and internal groups that reach out and work with security researchers to validate and then also reward those researchers monetary or in other ways, so that there is a positive environment to be able to report those vulnerabilities for both sides. So it's gotten much, much better over the years. If we go back 15, 20 years, it was the reverse. If you were a security researcher and you contacted a company, a major company, and said, I found a vulnerability, what you would typically expect is a lawsuit. You would expect their legal department to send you a gag order. Do not talk about this. Do not, and they wouldn't fix the vulnerability. They wouldn't accept it. They wouldn't validate it. Their job was just, nope, we're going to defer this. We're going to put a gag order on it, and the problem's gone. Well, times have changed, which is good. And now many companies are very much embracing the distributed capability of security researchers around the globe. So it's not just their teams that are doing security to try and find holes and vulnerabilities. They're now leveraging the entire world, which is a great resource for them, and actually very from an economics perspective, very economical for them to do that. So it's a win-win on both sides.
Yeah, definitely agree with you. Even though there are still some companies which will, probably harass you
There's
and
always outliers, but they'll learn. They'll learn.
I really,
Sometimes
I
you
really
gotta
hope so.
bleed to believe, and yes.
I really hope so. But yeah, that's the direction for sure. It's definitely different than just 5-10 years ago. It was completely different. Just the level of awareness, it's much higher there. So another aspect of this, you mentioned it, part of it before, is the fact that this product is of course using a lot of different AI algorithms inside it, right? And at the same time, we see that this kind of exploit is also using AI on their side in order to actually exploit the technology itself. So now I definitely see this happening more and more again, just because this is every new technology actually helps everyone, on both sides, malicious and legitimate researchers as well, of course. And I see, especially university researchers using this kind of algorithms more and more again to find exploitation about new technologies. Do you think that's a good thing? Do you think doesn't matter? It's always been like that. What do you think about this?
Well, embracing powerful technology is just a reality of life, right? We want that. We want the new, greatest, coolest tools that can do all sorts of great things. And businesses and organizations will embrace those. Why? Because they help generate revenue, they help reduce costs, they help make things more scalable and efficient. So, technology is just a tool. However, tools can be used for good or for bad. And we see that as just part of the landscape. We have to accept that any powerful tool will definitely be used for good, but it's definitely going to be used for harm as well. It really comes down to timing and understanding that, right? The second axiom of cybersecurity is that for every benefit a technology brings, it brings an equitable amount of risk. So if we understand that early on and we start to mitigate that through design, architecture, policies, procedures, whatever, we can reduce that risk to an acceptable level while still gaining the benefit of embracing that innovative technology. And whether it's Gen AI or other types of AI or quantum or next generation cloud or distributed computing or whatever it is, they're all very, very powerful. We just need to have some forethought and be prepared, right? We want the benefits, but let's manage the risk at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only, I mean, unfortunately, I think we are not always prepared, at least not in
No,
time.
we're not. Security is often
But
an afterthought. That goes back to the
right,
first axiom of cybersecurity, which is security is not relevant until it fails. So then you get funding. But yes.
yeah, that's very true. But but at least we can adapt as soon as possible, right?
Mhm.
When we have this embedded, in our daily life, in our daily job also, right? With all of the companies adopting this kind of technologies for really every type of job and work and technology and software out there. We just have, we see this adopted and used, and it is, of course, there's a risk in there that we can identify, we can measure, and we should address it accordingly. um, Very last thing I will mention about this, and it's kind of meta, meta comment about this, is the fact that at the very end of the article here, it's mentioned that Wired changed a little bit the news, right? Because someone from Apple reached out to them and said, "Oh, we actually have a fix for this. This is the link.
Mhm.
Just please update this." And I feel like this is even something on a higher level, right? Not only companies collaborate with the researchers, actually fix those those flaws, and then this means that someone was monitoring mentions of the company out there and is caring about the image, potential image risks or damage that the company could have, or the product could have, because it is maybe affected by those kind of vulnerabilities. So this could have been, of course, just someone read the article and reached out to marketing, and maybe reached out to someone else and said, "Oh, can we do something about this?" or it could be that they are proactively monitoring for this kind of news out there, so that the general image of Apple is safe, let's say. Do you think companies are really doing anything like that, like addressing the how can I say this, the reputational damage caused by security, let's say?
Yeah, absolutely. But keep in mind, in most cases, and I can almost guarantee in this case as well, the security researchers probably reached out to Apple in a
Absolutely.
professional way, right? And there are standards in the industry that basically say if you find a vulnerability, you contact the company, and Apple has a great product security company, right? So they field those requests. There's an entire dedicated team that's assigned to that. They evaluate that. They work with the vulnerability research to confirm it. And then they'll go in and start working on what is the fix, how do we mitigate these risks, and so they'll generate press releases and develop fixes, and then you have to test them, and then you have to deploy them, and there tends to be an agreed upon timeline to say, okay, vulnerability researcher, we're going to give you a reward, you can publish this under your name, we're going to give you credit for it, it's all good, but give us a month or 90 days because maybe it's a complex fix to get this so that people aren't victimized by it. And ethical security researchers are absolutely fine with that, right? They're going to get the credit, they're going to get the financial reward of it, they're going to get recognition, and they're going to build rapport with that company and their reputation. So the next time they have something, they've already got inroads into that. Now, as part of this plan, there's marketing around it, and there's people at big companies that monitor, right? If there's potentially detrimental social media or news articles that come out, but they again work, if it's security vulnerability, they work hand in hand with that security response team to say, oh yeah, we knew about it, we're working with the team, we've already got a fix, it's already deployed, here is our canned message that you can send, we've already written it, it's already prepared, right? We're already ahead of this. Our customers are not going to be victimized. It's an interesting news story, and now you spin it to show how good we are and help amplify our brand. And so, yeah, there's lots of maneuverings here. But again, if everything is working well between security researchers and the companies, then the consumer benefits, the researchers benefit, and the company benefits. It's a win all the way around. The only group that does not benefit are those who are intended to try and take advantage and exploit that vulnerability.
Even though I will just probably say kudos to Apple and similar companies out there for doing all of this,
Yep.
what I imagine people hearing from what you just said before was, oh, that's a lot of effort. Like,
Mhm.
I'm wondering right now, what about all of those very small companies, small and medium companies out there that maybe just can't handle all of this, and so that's just overwhelming for them. They don't have the budget, they don't have the people. So it's a big topic. I know there's not really an answer to that. Let's say a final answer, but I would like to hear any of those, maybe in the comments out there, while we actually move into the next news, if that's okay for you, Matthew.
Yep.
Just because unfortunately we don't have
Well,
all
can
the
I say
time of the
one more
world.
thing, right? Because you bring up
Sure,
an
sure.
important
Let's
point.
go.
There are scalable options available, right? Big corporations can throw 50 or 100 people in a group like that. A startup can't, but you can still put a link on your webpage that sends an email to your chief engineer, right? Or maybe your
Right.
only engineer, right? To just let them know, hey, we found something. And believe me, if it's your code, your product, your startup business, right, and this is your product, yeah, you're going to be open to, okay, let's allocate some resources to fix this bug that we missed. So there are, and on the other end, there are scalable companies out there that have full bug bounty programs that you can subscribe to, and they'll handle a lot of the validation and everything else. So there's lots of options. It's not just one or two. There's a whole range of options depending on your industry, how big your company is, how much you want to spend, and everything else. But the last thing you want to do is ignore a severe
Right.
vulnerability that gets discovered.
Absolutely. That's actually a very good point. It's not always black and white. There are gray areas, and maybe you cannot do everything Apple is doing right now, but still there are some efforts you can do to just
Oh, absolutely.
improve, your security bar at least a little bit, right?
Mhm.
Ignoring is definitely not the right thing to do. Thank you for that, actually. Cool. So with that said, I'm gonna jump to the next news, which was fairly big in the news just a few days ago, and this is something slightly different than what I usually bring to the show. But I thought it will be interesting to talk a little bit on the importance of cybersecurity as an industry, right?
Mhm.
As a business industry. I mean, so we're talking about Mastercard that probably everyone knows about. It's the one of the companies behind financial payments and a lot of actual
Yep.
different
Consumer credit. Yep.
services, right? Around that. And this is not per se a cybersecurity company, right? Still, they just announced they are going to acquire a Recorded Future, which is a fairly well known cybersecurity company. Providing different kind of services, mainly threat intelligence, fraud prevention, and stuff like that, for a very nice amount, which is 2.65 billions. And I read somewhere that is actually one of the biggest, if not the biggest, ever acquisition by Mastercard. That which is wow, that's pretty big. So now, this is the news itself, right? My first question in my head I had when I read this was, wow, does it mean we are starting to be important? Like, I mean, you definitely had tech companies buying other tech companies all the way, like from ever. Right, this is something slightly different in my point of view, right? We have companies in other industries that their core business is not cybersecurity. Still, apparently they are interested enough to do very, very big investments in buying other businesses that do
Mhm.
just that are very good to do in doing that. What do you like? Yeah, what's your opinion on this?
So this is an interesting acquisition, right? And it's really a signal of how the cybersecurity industry is fundamentally changing. I talk about this in many of the keynotes that I do. Cybersecurity has to move from a protection compliance cost center to something that's actually contributing to the bottom line. Assisting to up level revenue, average sales price, market share, things of that sort. And in this case, probably add on services for a fee. Now, as MasterCard is, it's not known for a cybersecurity company by any means. They're in personal finance and personal credit, but they are definitely a target of cyber criminals because of that finance aspect, and their customers are
Right.
targets, whether it be identity theft, credit card fraud, all that. So customers are very wary about that. And so security around their credit and their assets and accounts and personal identities and everything else is becoming more of a purchase criteria. So the play here with Recorded Future, which focuses on threat intelligence, is actually for add-on security services that they can offer to their customers as part of MasterCard. So you can pay, $2 a month for extra threat intelligence to track if somebody has your credit card or this or that or whatnot. And it becomes an adder for more revenue, right? So this isn't necessarily about securing their own internal operations environment. This is about being able to offer an add on service and generate a new stream of revenue that helps them and helps their customers, right? So I'm sure they've done the proper research to figure out their customers are interested. They are willing to pay. This is how much. Let's do the math. What can we bring in? Recorded Future is a good company to do so. They've got the reputation. This is a good gamble. Let's make it happen.
That's actually very interesting, right? You mentioned there that they did their research and their customer are possibly willing to pay, or a good chunk of them at least, right? Are willing to pay for a added value service where we're not just providing you the capability of paying and so on and so forth, but also will protect you from
Mhm.
potential threats. and that's very good. On the paper, let's see. And I understand that the company itself has a lot of is facing a lot of threats itself, and possibly they were paying already a lot of money to record the future just for their services, and now they just figure it out. Maybe with the kind of the same money we could
You
probably
don't
just
pay
buy them.
$2.6 billion
No, right?
to
No.
offset a much smaller charge. The interest alone on that $2.6 billion would probably pay for the services that they're getting from that company for internal purposes. So no, this
Yeah,
is an
that's true.
external upsell play. Definitely an upsell play. Which I'm
Yeah, no,
glad to see.
absolutely.
We've seen other cards do something similar. Discover Card, for example, came out with a program, I want to say last year, that it actually, for card holders, you could opt in, and this was actually for free, and it would
Mhm.
search data mining companies for your private information, and then when it would automatically request that your data be removed. And I immediately, hit yes and signed up, and it went through and it took out like 200 and something different, data harvesting sites and data companies and data aggregation companies, and then requested my data be removed. And it was a great free feature. And there's other companies that'll do that for a fee. But so we're seeing credit card companies get more in tune with the security expectations, the rising expectations and concerns of their customers. And this is something to differentiate themselves in the market if it's for free, or this is something to generate revenue, additional revenue, over the top revenue for some customers. And I assume with this one, given the price, they're going to be looking to generate new revenue streams.
Yeah, I think so as well. But that's the point. If we switch to the consumer point of view, right? Um, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago, it was very common to see people, like everyone really, buying antiviruses. Okay, so it
Mhm.
was pretty accepted as a society. It was something that you needed, and something that you're gonna install on every device, or yeah, maybe computers at the time. And maybe today with antivirus is not like that anymore, or this is just my guess, I'm not sure. But at the same time, this is something different. Do you think generally as a society we understand the need for a service like this, or do we expect maybe the company itself to invest in it and without asking anything? And I'm talking about the consumer side, of course.
Yeah. So a couple of things. One, I don't think consumers truly understand the risks they face. I think they see experts and pseudo experts say, "Hey, you should be concerned," and they have an emotional response,
Right.
typically fear, uncertainty, doubt, things of that sort, especially on the consumer side. But they don't actually understand the risks. So they're looking to work with trusted vendors that they already have, right? And it might be
Right.
their credit card company, it might be their bank, it might be one of the three major credit reporting agencies, Experian or TransUnion or whatnot, and say, hey, we would kind of like some help here. We don't want to be the experts, right? As a consumer, they don't want to be a cybersecurity expert, but they want their vendors that they trust to kind of step into that space. And so when we look at, Experian or TransUnion, yeah, they're doing services like this too. They're buying companies. When we look at credit card companies, yeah, they're doing it. Banks are doing this, to help. Hey, we'll search on the dark web for your name and your private information. Hey, we'll give you an alert if your password's been compromised. Hey, we'll do this, we'll do that. And in some cases it's free. In some cases there's an add-on charge for extra service or capabilities, but it's really tapping into those concerns that the consumers have, even though the consumers don't actually understand the details behind it. And honestly, they don't need to, right? They don't
Right.
have, everybody doesn't have to become a cybersecurity expert. Maybe a little savvy, but not an expert.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't even think that the experts themselves know everything or should know everything.
No, we don't.
That
We don't, but we're doing our best.
right. That we just don't have enough time to know everything about everything, and especially consumers can't, maybe shouldn't. But you said something that is very interesting for me. The trust they have in a company that already provides them some kind of other service is something definitely bigger than, okay, I'm going to a very specific cybersecurity company because I feel like I maybe need someone to check for my password posted online or something like that, right? I feel like the average person is really going maybe to buy this other service from Mastercard because it's Mastercard, right? They know the name, they had their cards from, like, I don't know, 20 years, 30 years
Yep.
or more now, and they will never accept maybe the same server, even for free or just for a smaller fee from another company that is especially cybersecurity, just because maybe they will never know about it, right? Um, yeah, that's a big difference out there. Definitely a big difference, and it says a lot about, I would expect, if this is true, and I believe it's true, other companies to do something similar, like some
Oh yeah.
similar investment in the future. Do you
This
see
isn't
that,
the
that as well?
first, right? This is a big one, but
Right.
it's definitely not the first. And if you think about it, rationally speaking, if you already have your bank accounts with Chase or UBS or something like that, they already have, right, a certain level of trust. Because if you didn't trust them, you wouldn't give them your money to store, loan out, or whatnot. So there's already an established rapport. And so taking it one step further, hey, they already have all my money and data. Yeah, okay, I do want them to help me protect. Yes, I'm going to trust them to do the right job. And I already trust them with my money. So that becomes a great opening, an opportunity for these companies that already have an established relationship of trust, especially around finances, to be able to extend and offer new add-on services. And why wouldn't you, right? So it becomes an easy transition and a win-win for everyone.
Absolutely. And if I need to compare this to something else that happened in the past, it's not the same thing, of course, but something comparable. It's probably Google acquiring Manant, right? It's different because it's a tech company buying another
Yeah.
tech company, but still, Google, it was, or it's not cybersecurity focused, or at least not only, and it actually bought a company that is only
Mhm.
cybersecurity and very known in the industry. And that's kind of similar, right? I maybe sell my cloud services, my cloud infrastructure, my IaaS, PaaS, or whatever, and I probably want my own customers to trust me more because now I can also provide some added value services that I can bring in acquiring another company. Do you think that's something similar, or maybe not?
No, it very much is. In fact, we see that across Google. We see that across Amazon and Microsoft for their cloud environments. They've been buying and scooping up security firms, especially small ones, right, with innovative technologies focusing on cloud security environments. And then they turn around and they offer those as add-on services as part of the cloud package. So it simply increases their average selling price, right? The amount of money they're getting from each customer each month because they're adding these services on. So again, this has been going on for a couple of years now, actually more than 2 years in the cloud space. So I think it absolutely, it's a great example of how this has worked in that environment. And now the finance, industry is thinking, hey, I need to jump on this as well. Yes.
I just think, to close it up, I just think this should be very an exciting, time for security practitioners out there, because this, if nothing, should tell us that something is changing, and as you said before, it's not security is not a cost anymore. It's slightly and slowly becoming something
It's
more,
moving there.
right?
Yes.
And something maybe a little more appreciated, and with more people aware of the threats out there in both sides, companies and consumers. I feel like um, you know our job as individuals will also be slightly more appreciated globally, just not from the from each other, let's say. And that should be something exciting, I mean.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, it won't happen by default, right? Security and the evolution of security from a cost center into something that's a competitive advantage and even a revenue generator takes a tremendous amount of insight and work to actually make happen. I know. I mean, I did this when I was at Intel, right? Trying to move that needle for various forms of value proposition beyond just being a cost center. So there is an evolution going on out there. It is challenging, especially for the traditional type of CISO who is a technologist and not necessarily savvy in business, because this is a business case and it takes investment. Just as you can see here, they invested a pretty penny to acquire this company. And there's all sorts of other costs for the integration and everything else. So they are making a big investment. But the security team needs to work with the business team to be able to identify what the right path is. And so the company benefits from it and the customers benefit from it. But it takes a lot of work. It doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't happen all by itself. Security has to change our mindset and move into that space of providing better business value to the companies that we serve.
So it's like a pretty big challenge in there, but hopefully we'll get there at some point.
We will. The ones that don't will die off. I'll tell you that right now. It's Darwinism. It's going to be that brutal. So we will either adapt and evolve to justify how much we're spending and asking every year for security, or we're going to be dead, right? It'll be a downward spiral of less effectiveness, more loss. Why do we have you? And
Yeah,
So.
hopefully it's going to be different. So that's great. I think that that was fair enough for this news. Now I'm gonna jump to the very last for this episode, and this is the one that actually gave us the name for the episode, really. I always try to bring for the last one just the biggest or just the most interesting. In this case, I would say it's probably the most concerning one, right?
Yeah.
Once again, it's not because I want to spread fear or anything. The reason why I chose this was because awareness is just the first driver for any sort of improvement, especially in our industry. So I really think that both inside the industry and outside of it, we should be aware of such things. What I'm talking about is this research from Brian Krebs. Once again, I probably have one of his articles every episode or so. This is very great. It's very long, and we're not going to talk about all of it. So please, go ahead and read it yourself and let us know your opinion in there. What basically Krebs found here is that there are a lot of different connections between what we usually call the cybercrime. So basically those financial driven groups that most of the time attack with ransomware and extortion companies right there with the goal to actually take money from them via extortion. And another, I'd say darker, but also as bad as the cybercrime itself, community that is involved in a lot of other different kind of crimes. And I'm talking about harassment, I'm talking about sextortion, I'm talking about self-harm, and a lot of different kind of threats that are also and especially targeting childs, unfortunately. And that's very sad. But at the same time, I don't think most people out there think that those things are connected. Maybe we think the kind of threats we are facing on a daily basis are a very specific type, but those are not that bad. If you think about it, there are still a lot of kids taking part of the cybercrime groups, and one of these is the one mentioned in the article, which means this kind of groups attract people for the easy money, for the thing that, oh, if you can hack some company, you are still considered cool in those communities. And for the fact that doing the bad thing sometime looks fancy, sounds fancy, right? At the same time, those other things really doesn't look or sound fancy to me, because they are really harmful. We're talking about potential even deaths at some point. I'm not going to go into the details here, just because there are just too many things. One specific example, just before I give you the word, is the most recent thing here was the MGM hack. So the casino company was affected by a huge ransomware attack. And one of the people involved that was actually a 17 years old kid from the UK was tracked through his Telegram accounts, Discord accounts, and so on and so forth. And they find out the involvement in a lot of other different groups with the focus on other very darker and worse things. This is just one of them. This is just possibly the most recent one, but there are a lot of other different examples here. Now, I don't really think this is very well known. Matthew, do you think it as well, or did you hear something like this before? What do you think?
So first of all, to call out to Brian Krebs, he's a legend that if you're not following and you're interested in cybersecurity, you got to follow this guy. He's super smart. So I love chatting with him. So when we talk about cybercrime, right, again, it's not a single monolithic, group of people that are doing this. It's a range of individuals, and most of them are motivated by personal financial gain. Now, the simple fact is there are a lot, and I won't say a lot, there are people in this world, and we all know this, that are very caustic, very harmful, and are predators. The reality is when it comes to online communication, if you have a neighborhood bully 30 years ago, they could only target the people in their school or their neighborhood. Right. And if they're the type of bully that, did harm to animals and, mutilation and stuff like that, right, their impact was very limited. But with the digital communication revolution, that then opened up, well, the entire world to them. And so the internal motivations that they have, as twisted as they are, to do despicable things, horrible things, and to influence others to do those things, either to themselves or to other people, right, becomes amplified. And being able to then go into a social media site or a chat room or whatnot and be able to talk with fellow people who think in those same ways can reinforce that. And there is a ton of psychology and sociology around this. I work with a lot of psychologists and sociologists that actually talk about this stuff. And the concern is there's great benefit, right, with digital technology. But again, we talk about that equitable risk. This is a fringe case where there is a small group of people that are absolutely using the internet to do harm. And they like to choose victims that are easily victimized. So we're talking children, we're talking young adults, we're talking elderly, right? And manipulating them in some pretty evil and dastardly ways. And as it so turns out, somebody like that tends to not be very ethical, doesn't have very many scruples. So doing cyber crime is also a great way to make money. So you do see some of these very, very dark people become part of these cyber criminal groups. Now, I've been following and working with, cybercrime for more than 2 decades. I work with law enforcement to help do it, but I also respect and communicate with groups in cybercrime. And again, it's not one monolithic group. We've seen cyber criminals be absolutely ruthless and try and do harm and go after elderly and take away, issues. But we've also seen, certain ransomware groups, they accidentally infected a children's hospital. And immediately when the children's hospital responded to him and said, hey, we're a children's hospital, right, nonprofit. And they immediately said, hey, we're sorry. We didn't know. Here's the decryption keys. Tell us how we can help you decrypt. You don't have to give us any money. We're sorry. Right. And they went out of their way to try and get them back up and running, which, okay, that's great. Right. But when we're talking specifically about this article, we're highlighting individuals that are extraordinarily dangerous and caustic, that are manipulative, and they are driving people in some cases to do self-mutilation, in some cases to do physical harm to others, family members, friends, whatever, or people they don't even know. Physical harm, and in some cases, it leads to, unfortunately, loss of life. This is not predominant when it comes to cybercrime, but it is an environment where these types of elements do breed and do participate. So it is part of the focus, and law enforcement understands this. And law enforcement would love to get rid of all cybercrime. So would I. I'd love it, right? Snap my fingers, as a genie, it's gone. But when they look at the striations in cybercrime, if somebody is stealing a little bit of money here versus this type of person that is trying to cause harm, right? Physical harm and truly victimize people lifelong, they're going to prioritize their resources towards that. But it's still tough. It's not easy, right? Digital communications technology, you can hide who you are, you can do things. But the simple fact that they're now involved in cybercrime, it actually affords law enforcement a little more crumbs to follow. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. These people are going to do dastardly things anyway. If they're now, being part of these financial crime groups, these cybercrime groups, they may actually expose themselves a little bit more so that law enforcement can go after them. So there is a silver lining to this very, very dark cloud that we should all understand that exists. And we all in the back of our head do know that there's really bad people out there, serial killers and things like that. They're also online, right? So we should understand that. We often push it out of our psyche and go, no, the world's a decent place, and we move on with our day until something bad happens. But it's an important discussion to have, and Brian does a great job here in doing the research and highlighting the fact that these people do exist, and law enforcement has been able to intercede in some of these cases and bring people, I won't say to justice, because there is no justice for what they do, but at least bring them out and get law enforcement and penalties for them, including incarceration.
You this is a slightly different topic, but you make me think about something else. We had actually in one of the previous episodes we spoke about the Pavel Durov's arrest, the CEO of Telegram, and the fact that law enforcement are struggling in the last few years in tracking cybercrime using Telegram and similar platforms.
Sure.
And the fact that actually there's still a lot of, let's say, bad awareness out there where people think Telegram is encrypted, and that's the reason why it's difficult to access the data, which is actually not true. And at the same time, we see someone like Brian Krebs that did this, possibly everything on its own, and mostly tracking IDs of usernames from this kind of platforms, right? So this also let us know that there's a lot that can be done. Of course, it's a lot of effort. Of course, it's gonna be much simpler if the company helps out. But still, this article on its own, it's incredible the kind of intelligence you can bring it up. It's really connecting different kind of groups out there, like Lapsus and the Scattered Spider group, things that mostly as an industry we think completely separated and completely different, and possibly addressed and associated with different countries, which is not always true, or maybe it is true, but just in some part, right? I mean, where is the line? Is it?
There is no line. It's
right.
all a vague nebulous cloud, because you've got individuals who may be part of Lapis and are also part of Reveal or Reveal, Re-Evil, right? And they may also be working for Russian GRU, but on the side they're also doing other cyber criminal stuff. So you've got resources and people moving all over the place. Very few of these criminal organizations limit to, I'm just going to attack people in my country or just in this other country. There's some that limit and say, I'll attack everybody except for this country because they're giving me air cover and not arresting me, right? We see that sometimes. But this is the digital world, it's about IP addresses and MAC addresses, and a victim's a victim. And especially when it comes to cybercrime, you're going after the easy victim. Do you care that they're on one side of a paper map that you never learned in school? No, you don't care. That you just want to know that they're within an IP range that you can get access to, right? That's all you're really looking for. Give me the easy target that gets me and satisfies my motivation. And for cybercrime, it tends to be personal financial gain. So give me the easy targets first. That's who I'm going to go after. And, when you see, hey, this cybercrime group has been dissolved or announced that they're no, they're not. Right? They're just reinventing their name. They're splitting up and joining these other groups, maybe that they were already a part of anyway. Right? Successful cyber criminals don't retire. It has to do with the greed principle. So they're just going to keep doing it, and they're going to do it more and more and more. And we're seeing them very, very successful. So there's no reason not for them to keep, to avoid that. So yeah, it's very nebulous. These attackers are very fluid.
This kind of discussion actually always brings me to the same question that I ask myself. Like, we appear to always try to put constraints and limits to something that it does not really have any, right? And I'm talking about the overall field of threat intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of people which I know, which are great professionals, which do a very great job, and they are very their skill set is amazing and incredible. And at the same time, I always ask myself, when we spend all of that effort in attribution, right, attributing a specific group to a specific country and a specific kind of target and a specific, I don't know, goal in there, does that even make sense? I don't know if that I don't know if the question makes sense, right? But what if the same members of that same group is also part of another group with different goals, association with other countries, right? Are we doing the right thing in there, or is just the best we can do?
So the dirty little secret that nobody really wants to talk about is attribution of hacks or crimes or so forth is extraordinarily difficult. In fact, most cases where they are sure that it is an individual or a particular group is not because of the technology breadcrumbs. Those can all be spoofed and hidden and everything else. No, it's actually human intelligence, and it's people in a social group saying, "Oh yeah, we did that. We did that." Oh, well, okay, right? So it's the human intelligence aspects that are actually confirming it. It's not the technology. You can be the best at forensics, and I've worked with some of the best in forensics, in hardware, in firmware, in operating systems, in networking, and everything else. And the honest fact is, yeah, we can look, we can make some assumptions, we can jump to some conclusions here, we can take a guess that the news article will absolutely quote us in and say, oh, for sure it was this nation state or this threat actor. We probably, we're not sure. Right? Unless we actually have hard intelligence, typically from a human asset that says, yeah, that was us. Yeah, you don't know. So whenever you see, hey, an attack just happened and they determined that it was, China or Russia or whomever, they're just blowing smoke, right? They're making an educated guess at best, and it may take months or years or never to actually truly verify the and attest to who is behind it. Dirty little secret. Nobody wants to talk about it.
Yeah, and we're not going to say it to no one, right?
I say this all the time to forensics people, and they nod. They're like, "Yeah, we know." Yeah, the marketing people take it and run with it. The news articles run with it. We tell them we're probably sure, or the indicators point to.
Yeah, it could be
kind of vague
potentially.
And, if you say the indicators point to, I've got 3 indicators. Right. That was it. And they were weak. But the news, the article, the author of the article heard indicators point to, well, then, oh, yeah, they said it's from them. Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, I wouldn't bet my paycheck on it, but sure, run with it on your story. That's fine.
This is definitely a difficult topic, for sure. And it has a lot of different, point of views. And once again, it's one of those topics that you have a very strong point of view, and I kind of agree with it. But at the same time, I will probably invite someone else, which maybe is working on the threat intelligence field, and ask their opinion on
Yes.
it.
Tell you what,
Because
bring
I
me
know
on. Let's have a debate. Let's talk
maybe
about that. Oh, and again, I talk to these firms and I work with government agencies and everybody you're not
right.
supposed to talk about. So yeah, let's talk.
Yeah, let's talk about
Let's
it.
see if they're
Yeah.
really entrenched in saying, "Oh, we're sure we've got technical indicators that prove this." Oh, let's talk.
You just gave me
The
just that.
gauntlet has been thrown down. Yes.
So you just gave me an excuse to reach out again to you for another episode. So you have to accept this time. Thanks for that. So
Absolutely. It'll
well,
be fun.
no, I just think it's always good to listen from people from different backgrounds, different skill sets, different knowledge, because there's when I'm going to learn something, right? I cannot learn if I just hear myself talking, just my own opinions and just my own thoughts, and maybe there's just something I don't know about it. I do believe all of that research is gonna help. It's gonna help a lot in reaching out and identifying those people, and just limiting the overall threat. So I know it's something helpful, and at the same time, everything should be taken as what it really is, probably. um, but that's it. I think we actually are good for the day. Unfortunately, I just saw the time.
Well, can
It
I
has
add one
been
more thing just to add on to what you said?
absolutely
Have a tough industry, right? But the
right.
way we fundamentally get better across our industry is doing exactly what you're talking about. It's to be able to communicate and collaborate amongst ourselves and constructive conversations, even with different points of view, right? And different perspectives. That is crucially important for us to have constructive conversations so that we all get better at cybersecurity. So, I never turn down an opportunity to be able to have those, because that's how we all elevate our industry.
I mean, I'm so grateful for that segment you just had, because I feel like that's one of the main goal of this the same project, right? The fact that we are communicating, we are spreading awareness, we are having maybe a debate, we are having some conversation, and I for sure learning a lot in the process, from the news and from the people who are writing this news and are doing a lot of research, and from you in this case, that bring me your own opinions, thoughts, knowledge, and background on it. I feel like this is so important, and if you people watching this feel the same, maybe just let us know, so that I will just keep it going and doing more of these episodes. Uh, Matthew, I think this is very all. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much for joining me today. It was insightful for sure, and very interesting. And yeah, that's it. Thank you, everyone who is watching, listening to this, and I'll see you next week with a new episode. Bye, everyone.